Right guys, today I'm going to be teaching you a poem called The Guy in the Glass by Dale Wimbrow. I do apologize for the quality of the video. I know it's not the best. Unfortunately I'm using the visualizer and the camera on that is not that great, but I'm sure it will be alright for what we need it for. Okay, so The Guy in the Glass, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read you the poem. The poem goes like this. When you get what you want in your struggle for pelf, and the world makes you king for a day, then go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that guy has to say. For it isn't your father or mother or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the guy staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear up to the end. And you've passed your most dangerous, difficult test if the guy in the glass is your friend. You may be like Jack Horner and chisel a plum, and think you're a wonderful guy. But the man in the glass says you're only a bum if you can't look him straight in the eye. You can fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartaches and tears if you've cheated the guy in the glass. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to have a little discussion quickly, and then we're going to get on to the analysis of the poem. Not a very difficult poem, quite easy to understand. I think you'll have grasped by now what the main message of the poem is. You must remember that when a poet constructs a poem, there's generally a reason for it. He's not just doing it for fun. And sometimes he's commenting on society, sometimes he's expressing his emotions, sometimes he feels very strongly about a certain theme or a certain situation that's happening at the time. And in this case, what he's really trying to get at is that it doesn't matter how successful you are in terms of what you own or who you are in business and things like that, and it doesn't matter what your parents think or what anybody thinks of you. If you are not happy with yourself, if you don't have that self-esteem, that self-confidence, that dignity, that that ability, as we say, to sleep at night, in other words, if you are lying to yourself or you are not happy with who you are as a person, then everything else means very little. So let's look at the poem. Now I've got my copy here. I know it might look a little bit intimidating at first, and I hope that you are able to read the notes that I've got here. I will go through them as well, so that you can make notes on your own copy that I will send to you as well. Alright, written in 1934, so even then it was obviously applicable, but you'll find that I think this is even more fitting for today's society, because people have this tendency nowadays to try and gain as much wealth and as much materialistic things as they can, which is really not a true reflection of happiness. Or you can have people that own a lot, maybe have a very big house, fancy car, but doesn't necessarily mean that they're happy or if they even like themselves. Alright, I've said here the poem deals with integrity and truthfulness to oneself. What is integrity? You have integrity if you have strong morals, good values, and you are honest with yourself. Right, when you get what you want in your struggle for pelf. Pelf refers to wealth or money, and I've said here usually gained in a dishonest way, or it can be other worldly pursuits, in other words materialistic things, cars, suits, houses, etc. It's a struggle for pelf because people often go to great lengths to get those things. And the world makes you king for a day. So we've got this you. The pronoun you tells me that this is second person narration. If it was I, it would be first person, and if it was he or she, it would be third person. So it's as if the poet is directly speaking to you as the reader. Okay. So in other words, if you get all the things that you were wanting to get, and the world makes you king for a day, in other words, you're top of the world, you're successful, you're king. It's like king of the jungle. In other words, you've made it. Now you're the boss, or whatever the case is. Once that has happened, go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that guy has to say. In other words, that guy, which is kind of informal language, but colloquial, is he truly happy with the things that he's done and owned? You might have a lot of money but did you get that money in an honest way or not? Okay, so that's the kind of thing that he's talking about here. So that's our first stanza. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines in the first stanza. Second stanza says, "For it isn't your father or mother or wife who judgment upon you must pass." It doesn't matter what your father thinks of you, your mother, your wife. In other words, it doesn't matter what anybody thinks of you. The only opinion that should matter is your own. There's no point in your father and your mother and your wife and everybody else thinking that you're great when you don't like yourself. You know, it comes to the business of if your parents want you to be a doctor, but you don't want to be a doctor, why would you become a doctor? Yes, they may be happy with you as a doctor, but are you going to hate your life? Are you going to hate getting up every morning? Okay, so it doesn't matter what your father, your mother, your wife, or anybody thinks. The fella, in other words, the fellow, it's also colloquial, in other words, the person, whose verdict counts most in your life is the guy staring back from the glass. In this case, of course, the glass refers to the mirror, right? And I've written here on the left-hand side, self-esteem. Do you have good self-esteem? If you have poor, low self-esteem, you don't think much of yourself. All right. Okay. Something young people can easily relate to, I've said. In other words, it's so easy, especially when you're a teenager, to feel the need to fit in and to impress and things like that. But as you grow older, you begin to realize that people's opinions of you don't matter as much as what you think of yourself. Okay, that is the most important thing. Right. The third stanza says, "He's the fella to please, never mind all the rest." Okay, so the person who's looking in the glass, in other words, you, he's the one that you have to please. So when you look in the mirror, are you pleased with what you see? Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. For he's with you clear up to the end. Only you can pull yourself through difficult times. Clear up to the end. In other words, the only person that you are going to be with day, night, good times, bad times, the minute of your death is you. That's the only person that you can count on being with. You cannot escape yourself. So you must like yourself. And you've passed your most dangerous, difficult test if the guy in the glass is your friend. Okay, so the most difficult thing in this life is to be 100% content with who you are. And in other words, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you see a friend. A friend is someone who will be good to you, who will say nice things to you. Alright. Be kind to yourself. That's what you must do. You may be like Jack Horner and chisel a plum and think you're a wonderful guy. Okay, Jack Horner, little Jack Horner sat in a corner. You must go and maybe recap that nursery rhyme if you're not sure. Basically, he sticks his thumb into a pie, I think, and steals a plum. In other words, he's a thief. All right, chisel means to steal. So you may be like Jack Horner and kind of do illegal things or do underhand operations to get your wealth or what you want, and think you're a wonderful guy. And you think maybe you've made it. You've done a fantastic job. You got away with it. But the man in the glass says you're only a bum if you can't look him straight in the eye. So you might think you're wonderful, but if you look in the mirror and you can't actually look at yourself straight in the eye, why? Because you're ashamed of what you've done, then you're just a bum. Somebody who doesn't deserve any respect. I've put here as well, don't be too reliant on other people's praises. Again, coming back to the second stanza, it doesn't matter what your father or your mother or your wife say, it's about what you think. You must be content and happy with yourself. You must be true to yourself. Right, last stanza. You can fool the whole world down the pathway of years. So for years and years, you can fool everybody. Be somebody that you're not. Put on a facade of, this is me, but in actual fact, it's not the true you. And get pats on the back as you pass. Everybody thinks that you're so great, that you're so successful. Literally patting you on the back. In other words, you're getting praises as well. But your final reward will be heartaches and tears. In other words, if you don't stay true to yourself, living life for the sake of other people, you're going to end up with heartache and tears. You're going to regret it, and it's going to catch up with you. If you've cheated the guy in the glass, if you've cheated him, you've cheated yourself. Just a reminder again that the glass there refers to the mirror. Alright, so I've written here, if you don't feel the same way about yourself, then other people's high regard for you do not really matter. Doesn't matter what people think of you. If you hate who you are, or you hate what you've done, then that nobody else's opinion really matters. You're the one who's going to be unhappy. To look somebody straight in the eye means to face the ugly truths about oneself and address them head on. So like you look somebody straight in the eye, it means you say, I want this person to be honest with me. But if you look at yourself in the eye, because you're looking at the mirror, are you able to address what you've done head on? Lastly, this poem is an extended metaphor of introspection, in other words, looking at oneself, and integrity to oneself. Alright, so the whole poem is about not just literally looking in the mirror, but actually looking inside yourself, looking at your own character and saying, do I like what I see? Do I like who I have become? Alright, and then last thing, you'll notice if we look at the rhyme scheme, pelf, we put an A. Day doesn't rhyme with pelf, so that becomes a B. Self rhymes with pelf, so that's an A again. And then say, day, that rhymes, so that's a B again. So we have A, B, and then you'll see in the next stanza C, D, C, D. So when we have this line here, rhyming with that line, this line rhyming with that line, so it's this one, that one, this one, that one, alternating, and so therefore that is called alternating rhyme scheme. Right, there's another poem that we're going to be looking at called Myself, which is very similar to this one. It shares quite a lot of characteristics, and it also has a very distinct message, a very similar message. So just make sure that you check out that video as well, and then we'll do an actual comparison between the two poems, because both poems go together quite nicely.